Welcome to the Cards Central Postgame Show. Joe Roderick, the right expression here. The Cardinals fall 11-3 in game number 1 against the Cubs. And maybe it's just history repeating itself. The team in red on Independence Day usually doesn't win. Today was certainly more of the same in regard to our American culture. The Cardinals just had no chance today. It was a game that was dominated by the Cubs top to bottom. Mikolas set franchise records in home runs allowed. This was just a brutal game to watch as a fan. Brutal game to watch really from the jump, to see Michael Busch hitting 3 home runs, to see Pete Crow Armstrong continuing his success. This was more of the same that we had seen over the last 3 days, but amplified to its highest degree. In my opinion, the worst loss of the year.
That, yes, I have taken umbrage a couple times this year when Brendan, when anyone else has called other losses the worst loss of the season. I keep going back to that game, that game against Boston, that Red Sox game, that second week of the season. I am completely on board. This is the new worst loss of the season. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for everything going into this game today, and knowing what just happened in Pittsburgh, knowing you're against your rival on a holiday, the crowd was going to be, it wasn't going to be 100% Cubs fans. You knew it was the 4th of July. You knew you were going to have a good amount of Cardinal fans going up there, making the trip up there on the 4th of July to go out there and cheer on the Cardinals the first time they're playing the Cubs this season. And you go out there and you do that? You go out there and you put on that performance? That's embarrassing to go out there and do that. And I do, you know what? I know we're going to get into it. I feel sorry that Oli Marmol has to go out there and talk to the media and try to justify what his team just went out there and did.
I think that's a very fair point, especially after the last 3 games in Pittsburgh. All the quotes were, we're going to flush it, focus on Chicago. And again, you never know, right? Playing baseball is a very difficult game. We want to give these guys credit, but whatever they did to try and get motivated for this series didn't look like it worked, at least for game number 1. And those 3 games against the Pirates, well, the Cubs swept the Guardians too. So you didn't gain ground. In fact, in a stretch of games where we said we needed to gain 2 games, Mike Claiborne said that, the Cardinals have done the opposite. They've backpedaled. They have done really have eliminated some of the big wins that they had early in the month of May, late in the month of June, and a really bad start to the month of July. You came out hoping that this team would be motivated. Not much you can do when you give up 6 home runs. You could blame the offense a little bit, but this was a game that was lost. And by the numbers, just taking a look at some of the tweets that have circulated throughout the internet, 3 of the Cardinals' 5 starters are in the bottom 15 pitchers, starting pitchers in all of baseball in strikeout percentage. You have Mikolas, you have Palante, and you have Fetty, all 3 in the bottom 15 of Major League Baseball in strikeout percentage. That's just not going to work. It's not going to work when you don't have swing and miss in 60% of your rotation. This was the number 4 starter for the Cubs in Ray, and he went as far as they needed him to go, giving up just 1 run. I mean, this was a total example of where these 2 teams are at this point in time. And I know that this is not a year where we expect the Cardinals to win the World Series, but you got to see a little bit better than that in game number 1 against your biggest rival.
Yeah, and the strikeout numbers, that kind of stuff, that doesn't bother me that much, because when we were looking at it the other day, I think it's the Cardinals have three of their starters, Palante being one of those, along with Gray and Libator, are top, I think it was 46 in ERA among qualified starters in all of baseball. So, I mean, you have, when you want to break that down and look at that, that's 3 guys that are number 2 or better starters on any rotation in baseball. So the fact that Palante doesn't strike out guys doesn't bother me that much, just from the standpoint of, okay, you go out, he throws a lot of ground balls, and you can adjust when it comes to that. You can put out a different defense when it comes to that. But the spotlight today is going to be on Mikolas, and it makes whatever spotlight there was on Fetty for Sunday's game, a Sunday night ESPN game of the world, and everybody's looking at that and going, God, Fetty has been really bad lately, and he's going against this Cubs offense. It's going to be miserable. That spotlight just got so much brighter. That just everything now. I mean, every pitch we are going to be looking at, just waiting for the next ball to go off the scoreboard at Wrigley, like we saw so many today in that game. And I think whatever confidence there might have been, or whatever confidence you could have talked yourself into for that game on Sunday, I think's gone. Like I can't sit here right now and come up with the right words to talk myself into having any kind of faith in what we're going to see out of this pitching staff come Sunday.
Yeah, it's really a frustrating way to go for the Cardinals, because as you approach the All-Star break, as you approach the trade deadline, you were hoping they would trend in a more positive direction. They sweep the Guardians, and then things have just fallen backward. We talked about reaching that 10 games above 500 mark. Anytime they get close, 8 or 9 games, you can look back at the schedule. They have fallen. They've plateaued. Over their last, 4 games, they're 0-4. They are 2-7 in their 4 games following each of those winning streaks, 5 in this case, following the second time where they were 8 games above 500. Just not great for St. Louis. And again, back to Mikolas, career high 4 home runs. Now it's at 6. Cardinals record for home runs by a pitcher allowed, shared 5 by Harvey Haddix. That happened in 1954. And Scott Terry. That happened in 1989. So this is just, these were long-standing records. The Cardinals, by the way, set a franchise record for home runs. This is just something that they tied a franchise record for home runs hit in a game. It feels a little bit like game 1 back at Busch Stadium when the Cardinals won, 7 or 8-2. Hopefully the Cardinals can snap back in the same way the Cubs did in the final 2 games of that series. But man, the outlook after this one is really, really bleak. And you don't want to poke the sleeping bear, but if this doesn't wake them up, it's going to be a long, long road with Washington and Atlanta coming to town.
I liked somebody in the comments put in there, and I threw it up on the screen when they put it on there, and I'd have to scroll back because I'll tell you what, the comments are going wild right now. You keep them coming, YouTube, as we sit here and we kind of vent about everything that we just saw. But somebody threw it out there that at this point, I don't know who. There it is. I found it. That it says here, someone needs to lose their shit in that locker room and call out their teammates. I don't know if there's so much calling out, because I think you look at it, and calling out, I think, pointing fingers and blaming whatever. And okay, we could do that to Mikolas, who, that's a veteran, though, something like that. This isn't, some rookie making a stupid mistake. I think it's more of, hey, everyone needs to go look in the mirror and look at how we're playing right now when we're still in a playoff race. And, people laughed at us thinking that we had a shot at this back in spring training. And here we are. It's still in this race right now. And it's kind of a, personal accountability type of that. And I don't know who, I guess Wilson Contreras comes to mind. I guess he's the one that would be the guy that's going to step up and do that. And hopefully he does in this situation. But I think all the comments right now, you scroll through it and you see everybody putting up there about DFA Mikolas, DFA Mikolas, DFA Mikolas. I don't think that's an option. I don't. What is he? $17 million this year. I don't think he's going to be DFA'd. I think he's been around this club too much to get DFA'd. I don't think that would be respectful, if that's the right word, to do that. I don't think he should start next go around. I think after what you saw today, and you look at the numbers and the velocity of some of those pitches, and you look at what he was throwing up there, I think you could easily look at that and say, you got a tired arm, bud. The Cardinals don't play again. The Cardinals, he should not get another start, I think, now until July 18th is the next day back off the after that. I think you put him on the IL with, the arm's not right. You can figure out what's wrong with that arm, and his next start needs to come around July 20th. If that's even an option, McGreevy needs to get a look immediately.
I think that it's one of those things that has to be an internal conversation. And again, I'm not Ollie Marmol. I am not John Mozeliak, and I'm not Chaim Bloom. This team was put together in a way that I think nobody expected them to be as good as they are. And I think that's why we're as frustrated as we are, is that this team is improving upon their numbers last year in many regards, in many respects. But you look at the future against the Cubs, and if this is what it's going to be like when you enter the friendly confines for the next 3 or 4 years, it's what's the point? This team assembled, they're juggernauts. They are a juggernaut of a team.
They are, but you know what? Hey, Kyle Tucker might be one and done. So
he might be.
Yeah. So that's a big, that's a big question mark for them being a juggernaut for the future. But all the other, PCA is today. PCA kind of put the Cardinals on notice. And I saw somebody else comment in there too about how St. Louis and media and fans, and I hand up, I was along with everybody else making fun of him for forgetting how many outs there were in an inning at Busch in that first series. I think he's made up for that now.
I agree. Well, and I said to my family, maybe it was a pessimistic outlook, but that catch in the first inning with Mason Wynn said, there's the momentum. That's it. The momentum has completely shifted. What would have been extra base hits at the table for the middle of the order for the Cardinals in the top of the first inning, he comes up, hits a home run, then hits another, then a couple of singles. He certainly had this one as a series that he wanted to get retribution in. We expected that out of Wilson Contreras, but he got hurt, so you can't fully blame him. Now, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, and I agree with your point about Kyle Tucker, those who have seen the Cubs farm system understand they're going to continue to get better. Yeah. Owen Casey's really good. Moises Ballesteros is really good. James Triantos is really good. Kevin Alcantara is really, really good. And they have pitchers. So this is a top 5 farm system with a top 3 team in Major League Baseball right now. They are set up to win long term, and they're taking the Dodgers model of picking up people at the trade deadline and extending their best players. They are doing things in all facets from a front office standpoint the right way. It's fun to watch their development. Obviously, today it was at the expense of the Cardinals, but they are a very well-run organization. They're a great fan base. They're a good team. And the Cardinals are still in the budding stage of figuring out what they are, who is who, where are they going to fit. The puzzles right now, are they fitting together? I think a lot better than people would have expected. But after a game like this, I think everybody needs to take a good long look in the mirror and wonder what this team really can do come playoff time.
Yeah, and I think when you look at, just these last 4 games now, take it back to the last 6 games, those last 2 versus the Cubs, Brendan Donovan homered today. Okay, that finally broke your streak of 31 innings, 50 whatever plus innings going back to those 2 shutouts against the Cubs. The only other runs you scored in this game were against Jonathan Berti.
Yep.
He's a second baseman.
Yep.
So that's the streak of the futile offense that this team has been going through is also, we could sit here too. I easily feel like I could sit here for about 45 minutes and talk about the pitching today of Miles Mikolas and the future of Miles Mikolas, but he could have given up those 2 home runs in the first, and it wouldn't have made a difference in today's game if that was all it was. Because again, the offense, even having Contreras and Arenado back, the offense again today was again, it was ugly.
Yep, it was not great. 3 runs in their last 31 innings against the Cubs, 2 of them coming against a position player. So while we take a moment to calm down, let's remind all the people watching this
I'm not
video,
getting any calmer.
Yes, yeah, let's take a deep breath and recognize that baseball season is officially underway. It's time to step up to the plate. With DraftKings Pick 6, think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at a big win. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right. Deep breath. Find your happy place. Your Zen
I'm ready to keep. Hey, the commenters want to keep going. The commenters want to keep going.
I'm sure you have some big plans tonight. Don't light off any fireworks.
I got nothing.
You've got nothing.
I got nothing.
Well, if
I'll
you want to
sit here.
fly
I'll
down
sit
to
here as
St.
long as you
Augustine,
can.
Florida,
Yeah.
we'll get something going, man. We in some very PC. Wait, we're YouTube. I could say this. We could easily.
By the way,
forget
this right here.
tomorrow.
I mean,
This
this
is a
comment
great
right
day to
here
have this
telling
game
me.
because-
I mean, this comment right here wanting me to call it out and say it was pathetic. I think I've said every other word that's a synonym of that. I mean, I don't know what more you want me to sit here and say about what we just witnessed out there up at Wrigley. It was embarrassing. It was the worst loss of the season.
It was. And here's my favorite quote so far. Actually, my favorite 2 comments so far at the bottom of the chat. King's Echo, Land Shark, and Blue Moon. And you know what? He's absolutely right. That is why today is the perfect day for this to happen. Yes, it happened on national television, but you can have that age-old tradition that my great-grandfather did so well. He practiced so well in St. Louis and Chicago, is pouring back a couple of tall boys and doing some 16-ounce curls. This was exactly the type of game where you certainly want to forget it. And again, maybe the Cubs got all their runs out of the way in game 1 of this series. That might be wishful thinking. But back to the conversation with Mikolas. He had a great start to the season, has really struggled mightily of late. Big news, though, for the Cubs. Jameson Taillon is sent to the IL with a calf strain. He's expected to miss a large amount of time, according to Craig Counsell. That happened before the game. So pitcher to be announced for tomorrow. I could very easily see a bullpen game with as fresh as they are from today. And those are sometimes difficult to navigate, especially with a bullpen as good as theirs. But if you win in game 2, then you get that bullpen a little exhausted before game 3. Then you've got a shot against Matthew Boyd, who's been the best starter for the Cubs this year.
Yeah, I think they called up Jordan Wicks, who I know started a couple games last year for the Cubs. I don't know the last time he pitched in Iowa for them. So he could very well be an opener of sorts. And it's not like you really stressed out your bullpen that much today, because Colin Ray, they went out there and they made him look like it's Cy Young.
Kerry Wood.
It was. I mean, and you and I were kind of texting about during the game about the approach that they had. And the first inning, they went up there trying to swing out of their shoes, which I was fine with. Which I said this morning on 365, the Cardinals had to score in the first inning today. That was, if they didn't score in the first inning today, I was very concerned about the game, because it had been 28 innings that they had gone without scoring a run. I kind of looked at it as you got to go out there and you got to score something. Like, you got to go out there and score a run, or it's going to keep eating at you over and over. It's going to keep eating at you. Like, okay, shit, now it's 29 innings. Now it's 30 innings. Now it's 30. Like, it's just going to keep going and going and going. So I was fine with it right away. But then as it was going on, some of the other at-bats, I mean, Colin Ray is a guy that the Cardinals should have no problem teeing off on.
Well, that's the big question, right? How many times have the Cardinals answered the call when they've been down 7 or down 5? They've done it time and time again. That it's almost become an expectation that they will, and that's unfair of us as fans. That's unfair of the pitchers to assume that they can always do it, especially at a ballpark as hostile as Wrigley Field was today. It was raucous. It was a crazy crowd. My dad and my mom were sitting in the stands as fans, and then they decided about couple of home runs in, they're like, we could probably go watch this from a restaurant somewhere, and their outlook was a little bit better from that point on. But this is really one of those things that I think we have to take a deep breath about, is that they're 5 games over 500. They're right now still in the 3rd place wild card spot, and the Padres are struggling, the Giants are struggling. They're right in it, but it feels like if you want to be competitive, you need to try and win your division. You can't get into a situation where you need to play the Dodgers for 3 games at Dodger Stadium, or the Phillies for 3 games, or the Mets for 3 games at their ballpark, trying to get into the NLDS. This team right now is in a bit of a spiral, but it's 4 games, and I certainly trust them to bounce back. But tomorrow will be very telling of what this Cardinals team is at this point in the season.
Yeah, you have tomorrow again. I thought today's game was so important, because you were going out there against the pitcher that you should have been able to score more than one freaking run against in the time he was out there. And you were not expecting Miles Mikolas to go out there and set a record for how many home runs he gave up in his time out. You weren't expecting this to happen. Like, I think if you would have told me Miles Mikolas gave up a lot of hard hit balls, doubles in the gap, I would be like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's kind of where it's been trending. But 6 home runs, it was not what I was expecting out of this. But I thought today was so important because, as you mentioned, they don't know who's starting tomorrow, and they don't know who they really have going tomorrow. So I thought going out there today and knocking around that bullpen a little bit and making them a little shorthanded tomorrow with Matthew Liberatore going, who I think we do have confidence in. I think we look at tomorrow's game and go, okay, maybe he can hit the reset button and kind of bring this back to a 1-1 series. But I did think that was so important because, again, you win today, you send Liberatore out there tomorrow against a bullpen or a AAA, and then you're not as worried about Sunday with Matthew Boyd on the mound going up against Eric Fetty. Then it's, okay, hey, whatever happens, happens.
I agree. And I talked about it when the Cubs came to town, is that the Cardinals could not beat the Cubs at their own game. Well, the Cardinals did it through the first 2 games of that series, then were shut out in the last 2. Today was an example of, again, the Cubs playing their game and the Cardinals not being able to keep up. A lot of early in the count swings. They didn't do what makes the Cardinals a good team. They didn't knock pitchers out of the game early like they did with Paul Skeens. They didn't knock Ray out of the game by getting deep into counts. They were swinging early and they were swinging underneath the baseball. Not that they didn't have solid pieces of contact the first 2 innings or so, but it just isn't enough. This is a team that is built to get runners to second early, move the runner over, and bring him in. They haven't done a good job of that over the last 4 games, and that's plain and simple a reason why they haven't won in the last 4 games. Now, what that means, I don't know, but moving forward, you certainly would like to see more of that hard-nosed style of baseball that we have grown accustomed to here in St. Louis.
You want to hear something that's completely off topic, and I just saw this on Twitter, so I have to bring it up right now, and I have to brag on it. We're sitting here, and we could see a July 4th miracle right now. For the first time this year, I have 2 of my first 2 of my 3 Roddy Bombs guys have homered so far today. We are sitting here, and we are going to be locked in tonight on Angels and Blue Jays, which starts at 6:07, because so far Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh have both homered. And I picked, so I went Cal Raleigh just because, I mean, the big dumper, I'm going to go with
Those
him.
are really, really original picks. You thought outside the box hard.
I went, you know what? I went with Captain America for the 2026 World Baseball Classic and Aaron Judge today on America's birthday. And then I went with the 2023 American captain, Mike Trout, for the other one. And then I just threw Cal Raleigh in there just because. So we need a Mike Trout home run. And I hit my first Roddy Bomb of the season. So
it feels like, you know what? Wins come in all ways, shapes, and sizes. And
I won't care at all about this Cardinal loss if I hit those 3 today. Could be.
That is, you know what? That is commitment to your craft. Now, I was looking at this as just from a fan standpoint and reading all of the Cardinals articles and seeing the tweets of the amazing journalists, John Denton, Katie Wu, Derek Gould, everybody that was involved. And they all had little tweets and statistics. And I believe it was John Denton that wrote that in the entire history of Wrigley Field, there had been 24 home runs hit off the right field scoreboard. Pete Crow Armstrong, second of the day, was number 25, and like 2 or 3 hitters later, Michael Busch was number 26. How crazy is that?
Do they count Schwarber's? Because Schwarber hit his on top of the scoreboard. So
right, yeah, count? Actually, you know what? That counts. I think that counts, as long as it makes physical contact. But maybe there's a loophole of when it doesn't hit the scoreboard. And today just was really summed up by, like you said, the bombs bursting in air, except Francis Scott Key was not writing about that in his poem that became our national anthem. And today, if he was writing about it, he was certainly a fan of the Cubs and not the Cardinals. When you go back and you look at those, these weren't like, there's some home runs where you look at it and you just kind of tip your cap and you say, hey, you hit, I threw it up there you just hit 101 and you got a round on it. Hey, great job. It just seemed like every time I would look up at the score bug today and see the pitch, it was 86, 86, 86, hanging, just a hanging little slider or curveball, 86, 88. And you just sit there and God, that's just, you're just throwing junk up there at this point, just trying to make, just trying to just get me over, get me through. Hope you
hope you don't hit it solid. The Cubs were not doing that.
Well, and not to be a propagandist here, and I'm not trying to be, again, as somebody who has a family member that is involved in working with the team closely. I think we do need to give Mikolas some credit that he got through 6 innings and that Ollie Marmol had the guts to say, you know what, we might need to take a knee and let this game wind out and save our bullpen to try and win games 2 and 3. Because if you pull Mikolas in the 3rd inning and you bring Steven Matz out there and you go with a shorthanded bullpen, I don't like your chances in games 2 and 3. I really don't. So at least you give yourself a chance to fight another day and try and still win this series in back-to-back games. But the outlook certainly is bleak.
Yeah, and he, and Ollie had said that he did the in-game interview, which kudos to him for doing. I guess maybe they're contractually obligated to do those, but in the situation, I'm sure he did not. The last thing he wanted to do was go leave the dugout and talk to media in the middle of the game, but he did, and he said, Miles has to wear this one. We're trying to make sure that we're in good shape for Sunday's game. He's going to have to go out there and he's throwing 90 pitches, and we're going to go from there with that. So if you're going to take a bright spot again, but the Cardinals have to go out and perform the next 2 days. If they go out there and they win the next 2 games, then then we give Miles a gold star for going out there and doing what he did today. Yes,
we do. And again, back to Ollie Marmol. I know everybody consistently is going to blame the manager and blame the person at the top that is the easiest scapegoat. But he's managed the heck out of this team this year and deserves a ton of credit. In my opinion, he should be up there for National League Manager of the Year with all the expectations of this team to not be very good. They are a good team. Right now, they're in the wild card and they're in the hunt. So they are in the mix. They are a team that again, has some young, raw players that need to see failure. They need to have games like this in their careers and to figure it out or not. And if they don't figure it out, then make sure they go and go off to another organization in greener pastures and maybe somebody else can figure that point. But there's a lot of value in this team. And again, you were hoping for a better performance after the struggles in Pittsburgh. You didn't get one. In fact, probably worse performance than those 3 games, even though you did score. This was it was bad. It was a perfect storm in the Windy City.
Yeah, this again, and I think somebody, multiple people had kind of said it as they were going through, and the comments saying that this was, at first inning, after that first inning, I don't think it was after the PCA catch in the first inning, but surely after the home run, you just kind of looked at that. You were like, all right, this is how the day's going to go. Nobody foresaw 8, but I think if you would have said, okay, they're going to do this 5 more times, I would have said, okay, yeah, this is going to be an awful Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it was really not fun. I mean, the best part about it is that if you do July 4th right, you'll forget about it in the morning anyway, or by 11 o'clock tonight, depending on how into America you are. But it was a really bad moment. It was not a great moment in the Cardinals' history. It wasn't a good moment for bragging rights. And again, a team that had all the momentum through the first 2 games of this matchup in 2025 has totally fallen off a cliff, being shut out. I mean, I'm not saying I would have rather have been shut out again, because 4 consecutive games being shut out is bad, but giving up 8 home runs in this game, I mean, that's up there as pretty bad and almost feels worse.
Man, I got to tell you, I mean, you and I are looking right now and seeing what the comment section looks like for what just happened in that game. I don't know if you and I could handle if it was a shutout today.
No, not today. I mean, under different circumstances,
yeah.
Right? If it was a 3-0 shutout, would you take that over what we just saw?
No.
It's hard, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say no, just because I don't think I could, because this was an ass whooping today. And this is one of those where possibly a season defining type of games where maybe something does need to be said in the clubhouse. If it was 3-0, you just kind of look at that and you look around and you go, God, are we going to start hitting? But today I think is one of those that should be a wake-up call.
I totally agree. I don't think you can go the last 4 games and see what you've seen and played the way that you've played without making an adjustment. And credit to the Cardinals, right? Remember, at the beginning of the month of June, they played really bad. What was it, a 6-game losing streak? And then they
Yeah.
turned it around, and they sometimes you need it. And it has been a very long stretch without a rest. They got a rest yesterday. I don't know if it was enough rest. Thank goodness today was an early game, and you can take the afternoon to sort of think about it, not dwell it. But there are only so many games that you can just say, we're going to flush it, scrap it. This one didn't exist in a stretch like this. At some point, you've got to acknowledge that there is a problem and solve that problem. And I think that they're going to get to work on doing that.
Yeah, you can't go down to Navy Pier tonight and watch fireworks. They're not doing those this year. So that's one thing you can't do for that. So I guess what, head to your great grandpa's bar and maybe just drown it a bit.
You know what? There's a great private place that Harry Cary's on Dearborn and Kinsey. If you're in the Chicago area and want to go down there, make great food. That's a shameless plug. Also, we should try and get a spot. We should try and get a sponsorship done. I don't know. They're deep in Cubs territory, so I doubt they'd sponsor us. But no, that would be a great place for people. I know my dad's going to be there. My mom's going to be there, and they probably aren't going to talk about.
I'm going to guess Claves makes an appearance.
I am going to guess that he makes an appearance too, and they're going to have a blast. They're going to talk about. They're not going to talk about baseball in my mind. No. They're going to have a wonderful time and a wonderful evening on the 4th of July, celebrating our great country. And again, everybody's feelings in the chat, they're valid. I understand where they're coming from, but I think we all need to take a deep breath and understand that this is a good baseball team. It could be a heck of a lot worse, and I know that provides no comfort to anyone in the chat, but it could be worse, and it will get better. And right now, we are at the beginning of the future of the St. Louis Cardinals, and I'm just happy to be here and getting to cover it on a day-to-day basis.
This is like, for as bad as this is right now, 14-14 in June, they're winless right now in the month of July. I get it. I get why the fans are as negative as they are right now. But then I also look and I think the Yankees right now are on a 6-22 run, and they just dropped out of first place. Like, it took them going 6-22 to drop out of first place. But even then, Aaron Boone, he is very much on the hot seat. And I do wonder, I'm like, this is, we think this is bad. Could you imagine that, like, having to cover that at the moment? Like, it's, there are worse situations in baseball right now. They just got off to a little bit of a head start. Yes,
they did. And sometimes it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Harken back to the 2019 Washington Nationals, a team that was left for dead and went on a really historic run. And we're one of the best teams in baseball in the second half of the year. They win the World Series. And I'm not saying that the Cardinals are going to go do that, but they can go on a run. This team can go on a run. They've shown it in glimmers. The Cubs just happen to be on one of their runs. It's the 4th time they've had a 4 or more game win streak this season. But the payroll is higher in Chicago. They have some younger players that have already contributed at the major league level. They don't have as much roster questions in terms of where you need to play guys on the day-to-day. They have a stronger starting rotation. They have a stronger bullpen as it sits. Sometimes you're going to get beat by really good teams. And today the Cardinals got beat by a really good team.
Yeah, and it just beat really bad. I think, and maybe again, if this was a 12-10 game, do we feel a little better? Absolutely. If the balls are flying out for both sides, we feel a lot better. It just didn't go that way.
And you're just waiting for the powder keg to explode, because right now you have to feel like the pressure's building internally, externally. Somebody's going to have a big moment, and it will propel this team. It happens to every team every year, even if it's for a short burst. It will happen. It will happen. There's only so much that you can take as a team that's struggling like the Cardinals are over the last 4 games until things finally turn their way. Real talk. My beloved Chicago Cubs made my day. Happy 4th. Well, happy 4th to you too. It was a great game. I'm not going to go and cry and complain about what the Cubs did. They went and did an amazing job, and they played a great game of baseball. As much as I'm sure many people would like us to go out and be angry with this Cubs fan for coming into the chat, we love it. Come on in.
A lot of Cubs fans in the chat now. They have infiltrated our show today.
Absolutely. 2 great organizations, a great rivalry, and one that's going to continue tomorrow after a July 4th that we'll never forget, but not with a lack of trying. Certainly later tonight, I'm sure Joe Roderick and Stefan Carary here. Joe, you have any final thoughts to put the bow on the show?
Now I'm glad. You know what? I don't think I'm on either of the shows the next 2 days, and I'm glad that I'm glad I'm not.
I think so. I think so. Well, it's been a whole lot of fun communicating with everybody in the chat. Thank you guys so much for your spirited discussions. And the Cardinals dropped game one, 11-3. Cubs hit 8 home runs. They set some franchise records, but that's just one game. And the Cardinals have a chance to bounce back tomorrow on Saturday, July 5th, as they look to get back on track.